So, I want to talk today about Plato's Cave. This is an analogy. Let me put the key idea here. It's an analogy. An analogy is a way of speaking about an idea or an argument through an example. So, this is an analogy of Plato's idea of knowledge. So, the way that the world is formed and the way that we gain knowledge of that world. It happens in Plato's book, The Republic, and it happens just after Socrates has finished talking about his political philosophy, and they start talking about the origins of knowledge. Remember that Plato is a rationalist, so he's going to prioritize intellectual reasoning. What I want to do is I want to talk about kind of what happens as we go through each stage. So I'm going to write some very brief notes here about what happens at each stage in the analogy, and also then what it means, what Plato is actually getting at here. And we're going to write those down here. So let's start. The cave analogy begins, as you might have guessed, well, it begins in a cave. And this cave is cold and dark. Now, in this cave are a set of prisoners who have been tied up all of their lives. All of their lives, by the way, is a very long time. Now, they see only this cave wall their entire existence. And this cave wall occasionally has images projected upon it. So here is an example of an image. This, of course, is a shadow, right? So these prisoners, they're seeing shadows all of the time. Now, if they've only ever seen shadows, what do they think reality is? Well, of course, they think that reality is only shadows. They think shadows are the reality. So these prisoners are tied in a cave. Now, when they're tied in a cave, their whole lives, remember, what they see is shadows. This is a very, very sad start, isn't it? They only see shadows on the wall. So, of course, these shadows then are their reality. That's it. That is what they think reality is. Now, this original state for the prisoners is what Plato believes are called kind of images. So these are the images that we see on a daily basis. They are, he thinks, gained through imagination. Now, in the real world, in our world, he's thinking of things like reflections and other real shadows and these sorts of things. The way in which we see the world moment to moment, that's Plato's understanding at this point. That's what he thinks we exist as these prisoners caught in the cave. Now he says, imagine just for a second that one of the prisoners breaks free. So a prisoner is free. Well, he's going to climb over this, isn't he? And he's going to see what is really there. As he breaks free, he sees that there are people holding these things up so that the shadow from the vase in this case can be projected onto the wall, a little like that. He sees that actually the cave is significantly bigger than the wall that he thought constituted it all. And there is a fire here. This is, for Plato, kind of analogous, so the same as kind of scientific investigation. You're going into the world and you're discovering new things. So he sees the light. At this point, through empirical investigation, right? He gains a new perspective. A new perspective on the world. Things aren't just images, but instead there's a deeper reality behind it. So this gives him a sense of belief in Plato's order of knowledge. So we go from imagination to belief, and this is belief in physical objects. Notice, and this is an important point, that I haven't used the word knowledge yet. I bet I have, and I've done it by mistake, but I shouldn't have used the word knowledge yet. So we've gone from imagination to belief. We haven't got to what Plato thinks of as knowledge. Now we get to it. Here, the prisoner pushes on. He leaves the cave. So the prisoner leaves the cave. And this is very, very hard for him. Because he's got to climb up a steep slope. It's hard, but it's worth it because he gains real knowledge for the first time. He gains knowledge. What does he gain knowledge of? What do you see when you leave the cave? Well, let's find out. So he finds the cave entrance and he sees reality for the first time. Not just man-made things in the cave being projected on the wall, but rather the world as it truly is. This, thinks Plato, is the first kind of ability, the first time we've gained anything close to knowledge. In our analogy, he's leaving a cave, but in reality, Plato thinks it's the philosopher kind of thinking extremely hard and gaining an understanding not just of instances of things, but of the source of those things. These vases are made somewhere, right? Now, he thinks that this first kind of step towards genuine knowledge is the basic easy step. Easy in compared to what's coming in a second, but he thinks it's things like mathematics. I'm just going to write maths. Maths is an example of a way of measuring the world through just abstract, a priori, rational thinking. But it's not as complex as the next stage. Well, the next stage is this. The prisoner sees real objects. Oh, prisoner. Sorry about that. Prisoner sees reality. He's blinded for a moment. What's he blinded by? Well, he's blinded, of course, by the sun up here. The sun is just too bright for him. But as he explores the world, he sees reality for what it truly is. He gains knowledge What does he gain knowledge of? Of the source. So this, now we're using the word knowledge for the first time. He gains understanding. And this is understanding of the forms. For Plato, the forms are the origin of knowledge. Let's just briefly look at a few examples here. Notice here that we have the fire. Okay, the fire is analogous, is in the analogy, is really the sun. It sheds its light, right, and allows the prisoners at the beginning to see what they think of as reality. But here, when we get to the actual sun, this is confusing. The sun here sheds its light on the realm of the forms, the realm of reality itself. Well, the sun, that is, he thinks, the form of the good, which is kind of the highest level of form. So just to give you an idea of what we're talking about, we have two realms of existence kind of divided here quite clearly. On the one side, we have the stuff in the cave. That is the realm of appearances. That's the world in which you and I live, the physical world, the realm of appearances. But Plato doesn't think that we can gain real knowledge of that. It's only what appears to be the case. The real knowledge comes when we move over to a priori reasoning and gain knowledge of mathematics and the forms. This is the source of all of this. This is the realm of the forms itself. Okay. So that's Plato's cave analogy. The prisoner breaks free and leaves, and through each stage of the journey gains more and more knowledge. Plato actually ends his analogy by saying, well, what do you think would happen if that prisoner came back in to tell the others? What would happen then if the route were a bit like this, the leaving and then the coming back? Well, he would be, of course, disrupting their reality. He would be acting like Socrates acted. And if they could reach him, they would kill him. As indeed happened to Socrates.